There is a quiet kind of suffering that cannot be explained to others, a torment that hides beneath a smile, beneath the composed silence, beneath the attempt to carry on as if nothing happened. It is the pain of being falsely accused, of having your name twisted by liars, of being painted in shadows by those who once smiled in your face. Have you ever walked into a room and felt the weight of invisible judgment? Have you ever watched someone you loved stand beside those who betrayed you and say nothing? Have you sat in the quiet hours of the night, replaying every moment, every word, trying to understand how someone could so easily invent a version of you that doesn't exist, and then spread it as truth? This is not just pain, it is betrayal sharpened into silence. You become a ghost in your own story, watching others write the chapters with ink that stains and scars. Their lies become louder than your truth, and their hatred takes root in places where your kindness once bloomed. But let me tell you something, God saw it all. Not one whisper escaped his hearing, not one twisting of truth went unnoticed, not one moment of your quiet endurance was overlooked. There is a law higher than the opinions of men. There is a courtroom beyond the reach of gossip and slander, and the judge who sits there. He is not swayed by popularity or numbers or noise. He does not need evidence from the mouths of men. He knows. He has always known. You may have lost relationships, opportunities, even your reputation. You may have been buried beneath rumors so thick they drowned the sound of your innocence. But you are never hidden from God. He has been watching in silence, not because he is unaware, but because he is preparing something divine, something no lie can stand against. There is a day, marked and measured, when truth will rise like the morning sun. Lies may bloom in the dark, but they wither in the light. And that light, it is coming. You don't need to shout back. You don't need to defend yourself in every room. You don't need to argue with those who chose not to know your heart, because God himself will expose what was done in secret. He will pull back the veil and reveal the truth in ways so undeniable, even your enemies will fall silent. Their lips will tremble under the weight of what they see. Their confidence will turn to confusion, and their schemes will collapse beneath the justice of the one they thought wasn't watching. The silence you endured was not weakness. It was sacred. It was the silence of someone who trusts in divine timing, who understands that God's justice doesn't come rushed, it comes right. When it does come, it doesn't just vindicate you, it teaches those who harmed you what it means to tamper with the life of someone chosen. So let me ask you, what lies have tried to define you? Who stood against you while you stood alone? What weight have you carried because others were too loud and too wrong? Don't be afraid anymore. The truth has a voice, and it belongs to God. The same God who whispered comfort to your breaking heart, who sat with you in the silence, who watched every unjust word thrown against you, he is now rising on your behalf. And now, as we journey deeper, let us examine the sacred assurance that God will expose every lie and silence your haters. Each of the following truths will reveal just how divine justice unfolds, not in theory, but in your life. What was meant to destroy you will reveal their darkness. There's a particular kind of heartbreak that comes not from strangers, but from those you once trusted, people you let close, people you defended when others warned you, people you believed when they smiled in your face, only to find out later they were planting the seeds of your downfall behind your back. They didn't just lie, they calculated. They didn't just hurt you, they intended to. And the worst part? They wanted you to be silent while they rewrote the story with themselves as the victim. They used your kindness as their weapon. They turned your trust into their strategy. While you were busy loving them, they were busy plotting. They twisted your words, manipulated your actions, and painted you in colors you've never worn. To the world, they appeared innocent, soft-spoken, humble, sweet. But behind closed doors, in whispered conversations and group chats you were never part of, they sharpened their blades. They wanted to destroy you, not with fists, but with stories. They wanted to break you, not with confrontation, but with rumors. They didn't need the truth because the lie was more convenient, and when they saw how much it hurt you, they didn't stop. They smiled. But what they forgot is this: lies may travel fast, but they don't last. And truth? It may take its time, but when it arrives, it's unshakable. God was watching every move they made. He saw the intention behind every false word. He saw the smirks, the private laughs, the secret satisfaction they felt when they thought they had buried you beneath public shame. You see, people think they're clever when they do wrong in secret. They think no one sees. But God is not blind, and heaven is not silent. Every lie they told, every false story they spread, every conversation they had behind your back was recorded, not on a device, but on the ledger of justice. And now, slowly, silently, their darkness is beginning to show. At first, you wondered why things were falling apart for them, why their relationships were crumbling, why their name didn't carry the same weight, why their smiles looked strained, their eyes looked tired, their life felt hollow. That's not coincidence, that's consequence. What was meant to destroy you is now revealing who they truly are. You stood firm in silence. You didn't clap back. You didn't stoop to their level. You didn't expose them with screenshots or rage. You chose dignity. You chose prayer. You chose peace. And while they were busy digging your grave, they didn't notice. They were stepping into their own. Because here's the truth. When someone lies on you, they reveal more about themselves than they ever could about you. They expose their envy. They expose their insecurity. They expose the darkness in their own soul. The more they tried to assassinate your character, the more they made their own rot visible. And now, people are starting to see it. The masks are slipping. The charm is fading. Their influence is weakening. Not because you fought back, but because God fights differently. His justice is quiet, precise, and undeniable. He doesn't need to shout to make his point. He just lets their own actions collapse upon them. And you are still standing. Bruised maybe, scarred certainly, but destroyed? Never. Because what was meant to break you has become the very thing that proves your strength. God will make the truth speak louder than their lies. There comes a moment, after the silence, after the tears, after the sleepless nights, where the soul begins to wonder, will anyone ever know the truth? That ache, that question, it lingers in the quiet, not because you seek revenge, but because you're desperate for someone to finally see your heart for what it really was. You don't want to fight, you just want to be understood, to be believed, to be seen. When lies have been spread about you, it feels like drowning while everyone else swims freely. People look at you with tainted eyes. You see the hesitation in their voices, the shift in their tone, the distance in their body language, and you know it's not who you are they're seeing. It's the story they've been fed, the version of you that your enemies fabricated, to feel powerful, to control the narrative, to turn the crowd against the truth. It's one of the deepest wounds a human soul can endure, to be misunderstood, misjudged, and mislabeled, while the real you remains locked behind bars built by someone else's deceit. And the pain doesn't come from strangers. It comes from how easily people believe the lie and walk away. But listen closely. God never walks away. He He does not judge you by the voice of the crowd. He judges you by the cries of your heart. He knows what they said, what they twisted, what they left out. He knows the story from your side, not just theirs. And he's not just aware of the truth, he's preparing to broadcast it in a way no one can ignore. God doesn't whisper truth when it's time to vindicate his child. He declares it. At first it may feel like the lies are winning, like the silence is too loud. But God works in stillness. He is not in a hurry because the truth is eternal. It doesn't need to rush. It just needs to arrive at the appointed time. And when that moment comes, the truth will rise with such undeniable clarity that even your enemies will be silenced. Have you noticed how some stories begin to unravel on their own? How people who once stood proudly in falsehood begin to stumble in confusion? How their voice, once loud with accusation, suddenly loses its power? That's not chance. That's God's hand revealing what was hidden. He has a way of turning private pain into public testimony. He will cause the very same people who doubted you to witness your restoration. He will orchestrate moments where the truth comes out through circumstances no human could control. Sometimes it's a conversation that exposes them. Sometimes it's a shift in reputation. Sometimes it's the weight of guilt cracking their perfect mask. But make no mistake, God will make the truth speak. And when it does, it will echo louder than every lie spoken against you. And here's what's most beautiful about it. When God speaks on your behalf, you won't need to defend yourself. He will defend your name, your motives, your actions, everything. And he will do it with such grace and power that no one will be able to refute it. You will watch as hearts change, as stories flip, as justice flows like a river you thought had dried up. They thought they buried you with their lies. They thought they silenced your truth, but they didn't realize. Truth is not dead, it's just waiting for its hour. And now that hour is near. He will use their betrayal to elevate you. Betrayal isn't just pain, it's shock. It's that unbearable moment when someone you never expected to hurt you becomes the very source of your deepest wound. It doesn't feel like an attack from an enemy. It feels like a wound inflicted by your own hand, because you handed them the blade, you trusted them, you let them in, and instead of guarding your heart, they shattered it. They didn't just walk away, they walked over you. They left you to bleed emotionally while pretending nothing happened. And when you fell silent from the hurt, they took your silence as weakness. They mistook your quiet as defeat. They thought they had won, but they were wrong. So wrong. Because what they never saw, what they couldn't see, was the God who stood behind you when they walked away. The same God who watched the betrayal unfold without stopping it. Yes, even that, even the betrayal, even the pain, even the abandonment. All of it became raw material in the hands of a God who knows how to turn brokenness into elevation. You see, elevation never comes through comfort. It is born through crushing. And when they betrayed you, they unknowingly pushed you into the very position God wanted you to be in. They removed themselves from your life, but in doing so, they cleared the path for something divine. Because the truth is, they were never meant to go where God is about to take you. What they meant for evil, God is turning into your testimony. What they tried to use to discredit you, God will use to crown you. They thought they were burying you, but God was planting you. And soon, they will see the harvest. It won't be your revenge that silences them. It will be your success. It won't be your bitterness that answers them. It will be your growth. You won't need to remind them of what they did. You won't need to expose their actions. You won't even need to speak their names, because God is going to elevate you in such a way that your life will speak louder than any lie they told. They'll see you rise from the ashes they left you in. They'll see you laugh in the same place where you once cried. They'll see doors open that no man could have opened for you, and they'll know it was God. And maybe, just maybe, they'll realize they were never fighting you. They were fighting the one who had his hand on your life all along. This is the beauty of divine justice. It doesn't just restore, it elevates. It doesn't just make you whole, it makes you greater. And that elevation? It hurts first, it cuts deep, it makes you question everything. But once the storm passes, once the dust settles, once the noise fades, what remains is purpose, sharpened by betrayal. So, if you're still in that moment, still sitting in the aftermath of betrayal, don't let it break you, don't let it define you, because that very betrayal is the evidence that you are being positioned, that you are being prepared, that your elevation is already in motion. They didn't destroy you. They introduced you to destiny. Their influence will fade while your integrity shines. At first, it looked like they were winning. They had the attention, they had the crowd, they had the convincing words, the rehearsed explanations, and the carefully curated version of events designed to make you look like the villain in a story you never agreed to be part of. Their influence grew not because it was rooted in truth, but because people often prefer a loud lie over a quiet truth. You watch them manipulate situations with ease, turning others against you with half-truths and distorted facts. You were left wondering how people who once claimed to know your heart could so easily be swayed. It wasn't just painful, it was disorienting. You didn't just lose relationships, you lost clarity, trust, and parts of yourself. But even in your silence, even while your voice was drowned out, you never let go of one thing: your integrity. You chose not to retaliate. You chose not to become like them. And that decision, it cost you, but it also preserved you. Because while they built their influence on lies, you stood quietly in the shelter of truth. And now, the winds are changing. Influence built on manipulation never lasts. It crumbles under the weight of its own deceit. What they built will not stand, not because of anything you do, but because truth always outlives deception. And now their influence is beginning to fade, slowly at first, then all at once. Have you noticed it? People are beginning to question them. The charm that once captured hearts now feels hollow. The stories that once seemed convincing now feel inconsistent. The eyes that once believed them are now looking elsewhere. That's not your doing, that's God at work. You don't need to campaign to restore your name. You don't need to beg anyone to believe you. Time, truth, and integrity do what no argument ever could. God is allowing their influence to dissolve, not out of cruelty, but as a lesson, a reminder that no lie, no matter how loud, can silence a heart that stayed pure. And as their voice fades, your light begins to rise, not because you shouted louder, not because you forced your way back in, but because integrity shines best in darkness. You've been through the fire, you've wept in the quiet places, you've been misunderstood, misrepresented, and misjudged, but you never let your character collapse. And now people are starting to see it. They're beginning to remember who you really are. Not the version painted by liars, but the soul they once knew, the one who stood strong without needing to speak. And God is honoring that. He is restoring your image, not with noise, but with favor. He is replacing the lies they spoke with the truth of your actions. He is lifting your life as a testimony, not of revenge, but of righteousness. You don't need to fight for your place. You never lost it. You don't need to chase those who left. They were never meant to stay. Your character, your loyalty, your silent endurance, those were never in vain. Because in the end, influence fades, but integrity remains. And what God is about to do in your life will not just clear your name, it will make it shine. The same mouths that lied will be forced to admit the truth. There is a strange ache in the soul when you know the truth, but no one wants to hear it. When you watch lies take root in the minds of others, grow into full-blown narratives and spread like wildfire, while your voice remains unheard, buried beneath the weight of silence and isolation. You watch people whisper, you see the glances, you feel the shift, and worst of all, you know who started it. It wasn't just anyone. It was someone you trusted, someone you once defended, someone you covered for when they should have been exposed, and now they've turned around, used your past, twisted your words, and created a version of you that feels unrecognizable. They didn't just lie. They made others believe that you were the lie. You watched them speak with confidence, laugh without guilt, and act as though nothing had happened. While you were left to carry the burden of their deceit, they walked freely, celebrated by the very people who once claimed to love you. The injustice felt unbearable. It made you question everything. What's the point of being good? What's the use of truth if lies win? But what they didn't know is that truth has a pulse. It may lie still, it may sleep, but it never dies. And one day, when they least expect it, it rises, not in whispers, but in undeniable clarity. God is not mocked. What is done in the dark will be brought into the light, not just so others can see the truth, but so those who twisted it will be forced to face it. There is a reckoning that comes not through rage, not through revenge, but through revelation. And that day is coming, slowly, surely, powerfully. They will sit in rooms where the conversation turns. They will hear their own lies unravel in the mouths of others. They will see people begin to question what they once blindly believed. And most painful of all, they will realize they are being seen. Their voice will tremble where it once shouted. Their certainty will crack where it once stood firm. Their false confidence will melt under the heat of truth. And they will be forced to do the one thing they swore they'd never do: admit the truth. Maybe not in public, maybe not on a stage, maybe not with a microphone in hand, but they'll confess with their actions, with their silence, with their broken pride. They'll feel the weight of what they did, not because you demanded it, but because God orchestrated it. And you won't need to say a word. You'll watch it unfold with the same quiet dignity you've always had. You'll feel the justice, not as vengeance, but as peace. The kind of peace that only comes when heaven corrects what man distorted. And it won't just be about your name, it will be about your healing. Because there's something deeply healing about seeing truth rise. Not because it punishes them, but because it proves you were never crazy. Because it confirms what you always knew deep down. You were right. You were honest. You were real. And now the mouths that once lied, so boldly, so confidently, are silent. Or better yet, they're speaking, but this time they're speaking the truth. They'll say it to others, they'll say it behind closed doors. Some may even say it to your face. But regardless of how it comes, it will come. Because God promised to prepare a table before you in the presence of your enemies. And when that table is set, it will be your peace and their realization that fills the room. And no lie can stand in that space. So if you're still hurting, still wondering if justice will ever come, hold on. Because every false word spoken against you is echoing now, bouncing off walls of truth, heading back to the ones who sent them. And soon the weight of what they did will be undeniable, not because you made it happen, but because God never allows a lie to reign forever. Your silence was not weakness, it was trust in divine justice. They mistook your silence for surrender. They assumed that because you didn't fight back, because you didn't expose them, because you didn't air the truth when you had the chance, that you were weak, that you had no defense, that you had nothing to say. But if only they knew the storms you fought in private. If only they saw the nights you wept in prayer, the days you walked through with a smile stretched across a breaking soul. If only they understood the restraint it took to hold your tongue when lies were being spread about you like wildfire, when your name was dragged through the mud, when people you loved began to look at you differently, because of stories they never heard from your mouth but accepted from others without question. They had the audacity to wound you and then called you bitter when you didn't bounce back quickly. They created a version of you to destroy, then judged you for being distant, and when you chose not to fight their lies with more chaos, they saw your silence as weakness. But your silence was never weakness. It was wisdom, it was strength, it was trust, not in people, but in God, because you knew something they didn't, that divine justice does not operate on human timelines. You see, the world teaches us to clap back, to expose, to fight fire with fire. You chose another way. You chose to believe that there's a God who sees it all, a God who not only knows the truth, but also knows when and how to reveal it. And so, you stayed silent, not because you had nothing to say, but because you refused to stoop to their level. That silence, it was not emptiness, it was sacred space. It was your battlefield of faith. Every moment you held your tongue, every time you resisted the urge to retaliate, every tear you held in behind closed doors, you were saying, God, I trust you more than I trust myself. And God never ignores that kind of trust. People forget that silence is often the loudest voice in the room. While they raged and lied and convinced others of their twisted version of events, your stillness began to speak. Your calm began to expose their chaos. Your consistency began to shine brighter than their theatrics. And slowly, people began to see the difference, because truth doesn't need a microphone. It doesn't need a stage. It doesn't need a social media campaign. All it needs is time and God. And you gave it both. Now look closely. The shift is happening. The ones who once believed the lies are starting to wonder. The people who turned away are beginning to return with questions in their eyes. The very ones who applauded your silence as defeat are beginning to understand. It was patience, it was grace, it was spiritual discipline, and God is honoring it. He is lifting you in the same place where you were torn down. He is blessing the same hands that were once empty because of betrayal. He is opening doors that their lies tried to shut, and He is doing it in such a way that even your enemies are being forced to watch, silently. That silence you carried, it's now their silence. That loneliness you felt, it's now their isolation. That quiet surrender you gave to God, it's now your strength. Don't ever regret staying silent. Don't ever wish you had fought like they did, because you weren't weak, you were chosen. You weren't afraid, you were wise. You weren't defeated, you were trusting a higher court, a greater judge, a louder voice. And now He's speaking, and when God speaks, nothing can stop the truth. No lie can stand, no scheme can survive, no hater can interrupt what God is now confirming. So walk tall in that silence, wear it like armor, because in the end your silence wasn't surrender, it was proof of your faith. God will restore everything you lost because of their lies. There are losses that words can't capture, not the kind that comes from accidents or misfortune, but the kind that comes from betrayal. Losses that were deliberate. The reputation you built over years was torn apart in a few conversations. The friendships you nurtured were shattered by whispers. The peace you protected was invaded by someone's need to feel powerful at your expense. And the most painful part? It could have been avoided. It didn't need to happen. It wasn't fate. It wasn't a misunderstanding. It was intentional. They chose to lie. They chose to spread those rumors. They chose to stand behind a false version of you, and they knew exactly what they were doing. And the fallout? You paid for it. You lost people who once called you family. You lost respect in spaces where your name once meant something. You lost confidence, energy, joy, even your ability to trust. And while you were grieving, they were celebrating. They smiled while you cried. They walked freely while you sat in silence, questioning everything about yourself, your worth, your goodness, your decisions. It was more than damage to your image. It was damage to your soul. But here is the truth that will shift everything inside you. God saw what they did, and He never abandoned you, not for a moment. He watched as the lies spread, as people turned against you, as doors closed. He saw the betrayal, the setups, the slander, and He let it happen, not because He was punishing you, but because He was setting the stage. What looked like loss was actually positioning. What felt like defeat was actually the beginning of divine restoration. Because God does not just restore halfway. He doesn't return fragments. He returns fullness. He returns better. He returns in ways that make it impossible for anyone to deny that it was Him. You lost your reputation? He'll rebuild it with honor. You lost people? He'll surround you with loyalty you've never experienced before. You lost peace? He'll give you peace so deep that no rumor can shake it. You lost your voice? He'll give you a platform that requires it. You see, restoration isn't about going back to who you were before the pain. It's about becoming someone stronger, someone wiser, someone unstoppable. It's about rising from what they tried to bury you under and doing it so beautifully that your very existence becomes proof of God's justice. Don't underestimate the kind of God you serve. He knows how to reverse what the enemy tried to steal. He knows how to bless you in front of the very people who doubted you. He knows how to build you up so high that no lie can reach you. And He does it not to make you proud, but to make it undeniable that His hand was on your life the whole time. And here's the part they didn't expect. Their lies will be the reason for your breakthrough. The very thing they used to destroy you will become the reason you rise. Because God doesn't waste pain. He uses it. He builds with it. And when He restores, He makes sure that what you gain cannot be taken by human hands. So, if you've been in a season of loss, if you've been waiting, hoping, praying, wondering when things will shift, hold on. You're not being forgotten. You're being prepared. The silence was not rejection. It was protection. The delays were not punishment. They were divine strategy. And the pain you endured? It's now becoming your platform. God is about to return what was stolen, not in the way you expected, but in a way that exceeds it. He's about to restore your name, your peace, your strength, your purpose, and He'll do it in such a way that no one will ever again question who you are or whose you are. They took much from you, but they didn't take everything, because they could never touch what God reserved for your restoration. And now, that restoration has begun. God's justice is not silent, it's strategic. You were never crazy. You were never weak. You were never the villain they painted you to be. You were the one who loved the hardest. You trusted too deeply, believed too purely, and remained loyal even when it hurt. And when the lies came, when the betrayal unfolded, when the world turned its back, you didn't collapse. You bent, yes. You cried, yes. You even questioned God in the midnight hour. But you did not break, and that matters. Because now the tide is turning. God has seen every tear, every betrayal, every false word spoken behind closed doors. He has watched them laugh at your pain, wear masks of innocence, and gather others to stand against you. And in his silence, he was never distant. He was preparing your vindication. One by one, every lie is unraveling. One by one, the masks are falling. One by one, those who lifted themselves on your name are watching God lift you instead. You don't need to fight the way they fought. You don't need to lie like they lied. You don't need to explain yourself in every room, because God has taken your case into his hands, and his justice is not delayed, it's deliberate. What they meant to destroy you, he is using to build you. What they meant to silence you, he is using to strengthen your voice. What they meant for evil, God has turned it into your elevation. The very mouths that lied will be silenced. The very hands that hurt you will be empty. And the very life they tried to shatter will shine with a light that no darkness can put out. Because when God restores, he restores completely. When he exposes, he does so thoroughly. And when he lifts you, no one, not even your loudest hater, can bring you back down. So walk in peace now. Lift your head again. Your silence was strength. Your pain was proof. And your story, your whole story, is about to become someone else's reason to believe in divine justice. They tried to ruin your name, but God is giving you a legacy. They tried to take your peace, but God is giving you purpose. They tried to break your spirit, but God is using you to break chains. You are not forgotten, you are favored, and in the end God will expose every lie, and he will silence every hater.